right, good evening, everyone. My name is Reverend Rachel Heaton, and I am the pastor here at Beulah. And I think it's safe to say that I can speak for every single one of our church members when I say how proud we are of Caroline and how excited we are to have her back home with us. Although we know all that she has been doing for the last 11 months is the answer to her Great Commission. Caroline's asked that I open us in prayer this morning, so if you'll join me now in prayer. Good and gracious God, we thank you for the unique gifts in which you have instilled in each and every one of us. And we thank you for the gifts in which you have given Caroline. If you would help to open our hearts and minds so we can see and hear of her experiences these last 11 months. May you give her the courage and the wisdom to share all the ways in which you have been glorified, in the ways in which her team has brought earth or heaven here on earth. We thank you for this holy call in your holy name, in your holy church. Amen. All right, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to everyone who came tonight. It means a lot. But not only a thank you for coming tonight, but just a thank you for all your love and support and prayers throughout this past year. It's truly inspiring to watch all of our different little communities coming together for Jesus and for a greater purpose. And I'm not gonna start preaching, but I really my desire is that our communities will stay together, and that we didn't just come together for this one trip, but that we will continue to come together and reach our communities together. Because just talking with my squad mates throughout this past year, this community is truly special. I always knew it was special growing up here, but talking to my squad mates, they did not have the love and support like I did. Some of their churches wouldn't even allow them to come and present their trip before they left. And when they're going home, their church isn't allowing them to present the trip they went on. And it's heartbreaking, but it also just showed me how great of a community this is. And I can now say truthfully, this is the best community in the world, because I met other missionaries on the field who are from the States, and their communities don't support them the way that y'all have supported me. So I just want to start out by saying thank you. I know thank you, I feel like thank you is not enough. I feel like I have so much more I need to give y'all to give back, but that's the thing about receiving. You don't always get to give back. So thank you. Okay, before I start, I was practicing this last night, and I got to Asia, and I was already at about 50 minutes. And my mom said, you need to shorten that. That's too much. So if I get to a slide and I fly through it, and you have questions about it later, feel free to ask me. And there'll be pictures on the slides that I won't go over, but if you have questions, feel free to ask. But I'm going to try to move along, because it's hard fitting 9 countries in a presentation. It's kind of crazy. Okay, so this is our squad. This is us at training camp. There was 9 of us. There was 2 squad leaders, Bree and Lexi. We had 2 coaches, Mike and Shar, and we had a mentor, Orlin. And then this is Lindsay, but Lindsay in training camp was just kind of mentoring our mentor. And then this is our squad at the end of the race. This was at final debrief. I'm going to briefly go over training camp. I was really excited, I guess, when I started making this PowerPoint, and training camp is just way too long, so I'm going to go through it pretty fast. Training camp, what was like, it was very, very cold. This is by far the coldest weather I've ever experienced. Granted, I've never been to the Midwest, but for the South, we were in Georgia, and this was very, very cold. As you can see in this picture, there's like icicles on the hose. And we had to do, this is Peyton, we had to do all of our hand washing, face washing, teeth washing out this hose. And there was hundreds of us there because these little porta potty sinks in the back, they froze up. The porta potties froze up. It was just a mess at training camp, but we survived. Training camp was very busy. We all slept in this one room right here with like sleeping bags and pads on the floor, shoulder to shoulder, because there's multiple squads there. We had like duties we had to do, and then every day we had a lot of teachings, just learning more about the Lord. It was very joyful. Like I said, there were other squads there, so we got to fellowship with them, pray with them, and worship with them. And this is some of the most incredible worship I've ever experienced in my life. You could definitely feel that the Spirit was in there, and it was pumping. So what are some things I learned? Again, I learned about the community that I'm going to be living with, who were my squad mates. We learned about all the different cultures we were going to, like what are their customs, how can we steward ourselves well while we're there, and we learned more about the Lord. Also at training camp is where I got baptized for the first time. So growing up here, like I always knew the Lord, always knew who Jesus was. I always called myself a Christian, but I never made that public dedication of faith in Jesus. And on my birthday, they had a time after worship of like, hey, if you've never been baptized and you feel led to be baptized, like come to these tubs. And so I was calling it my re-birthday, rededicating myself to the Lord. And then these shoes, I had these sandals since high school, and they finally gave out also. And it was kind of just like, okay, well, out with the old and in with the new. So that kind of wraps up training camp. And then we fly to Guatemala just like that. And at training camp, we were told one team was going to be on the mountain, but we didn't know what team that was going to be until the night we flew there. And we were told this whole team or whatever, we weren't going to have plumbing on the mountain. So when I was told my team was going to be on the mountain, I was a little scared, I'm not going to lie. I love the outdoors, but I've never really camped on the side of a mountain without plumbing or electricity. But before I get too far ahead, there's a lot of people in these pictures. The main character in Guatemala is Chaco right here. He reminded me a lot of Anthony, actually, same mannerisms. But Chaco had a vision, and he was called to create this space on Prayer Mountain to make a space where families and friends can come and retreat and be with the Lord. It kind of reminded me a lot of Ashbury Hills, where you get there and you have no cell service. So you're like really forced to like look at the Lord's beauty and seek his face. So that was one part of our ministry on Prayer Mountain, is to like try to start building up Prayer Mountain. So this is kind of what living was like. We had the most beautiful sunsets and sunrises. So this is outside my tent. The sunrise was that beautiful every morning. This little shed, that is our kitchen. It also has like a little bathroom attached. That's our kitchen. And then this was our living and dining room, was around the fire pit. They call Guatemala's weather as eternal spring. So during the day it's like 60s, 70s, but at night it drops and it gets pretty cold. So we were always huddled around the fire at night, and we tried to stay out there as long as we could until retreating to our sleeping bags. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Praise. We showed up, we did have plumbing. They just fixed the plumbing before we got there. So we had showers, we had toilets, yes, praise. And halfway through us being there, about like week 3 into being on the mountain, as you can see, we have lights. We got electricity. So we could see when we were cooking at night. It was a blessing. Okay. I'm not going to really go through this. Like I said, it's getting too long, but this was kind of like what our food situation was like. We did get a generator about 2 weeks before we left, so we were able to have coffee. Ministry at Guatemala. I don't know if y'all hear that feedback, but every morning we would hike a mountain to get to school. And so our ministry at school, half of us would split. Half of us would do PE ministry. The other half would do English ministry. And there was a girl named right here. Her name's Jensen. She's from Virginia, and she's a full-time English teacher in Guatemala. So we got to partner with her and help her with English classes. After school, the kids would have a break. So we would go around and we would do village ministry. So we would go door to door and street evangelize. What you got to say, Grandma? She's trying to do this. And this day we prayed over a man and his family, and we received pumpkins. So we got to take pumpkins home. And then after street ministry, some of the boys would come back and we would do soccer ministry in the afternoon, which was really fun for them and us. Our second part of ministry in Guatemala was once a week we would go to a nearby village. It was about 2 hours away. And it was pretty cool because we got to see this house being built from like start to finish. So the first week we were there, we went and just like told the family, hey, like you've been, I don't know, what's the word? Chosen, selected, very good words, thank you. You've been chosen or selected to have a house built. So after that, my team's really job was to move rocks. So 3 weeks in a row we got there and we were asked to move rocks. And it was very humbling. But we had help from the village kids. As you can see, like they were lifting rocks heavier than they weighed, and it was crazy. But anyways, by the last week, we went and we no longer had to move rocks and we got to paint, and that was a huge blessing for us. And then next thing you know, we go back and we have like a housewarming. They cook a meal for us. It was really special. Another part of our ministry in Guatemala was every weekend, my team, we got to go off the mountain and into Antigua. So we got to do laundry, we got to live in a house, we got to share beds, but we had beds, so it was really, really amazing. And then Chaco is also partnered with something called House of Worship. So once a week, they close this coffee shop down, and we just worship. And it's really cool to see people walking down through. Antigua is kind of like a small Charleston. Like they have the cobblestone brick roads, and so tourists and locals are walking by and they're peeking their heads through the windows, and then some people even come in and worship with us. And then we would also have like Bible studies, and then we would go to different people's houses and have house of worship. I have 3 separate testimonies, but I'm going to start narrowing the testimonies down to 1. So if you want to hear more about each country, just let me know. I have more testimonies than just 1. But I'm going to share this picture right here. So on the mountain, we were told one day that we're going to have short-term missionaries come to the mountain one day and help us do manual labor. And we're like, okay, that's cool, like, yay, extra hands. And then a couple days later, we were told these people are from South Carolina. And I was like, no way. Okay, that's cool. And then we were told a couple days later, because they're finding out about these people as the week goes along. We were told, I asked, where in South Carolina? And they were like, I think Orangeburg. And I was like, no way. So then they get there, and I was like, I heard y'all are from Orangeburg. I am from Sandy Run. And they're like, no way, we know where Sandy Run's at. And they're like, we're actually not from Orangeburg. Kind of like I would say I'm from Columbia because nobody knows where Sandy Run's at. They're like, we're actually from Orangeburg, St. Matthews, Swansea, North, all these different places. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. These people, I'm on this race. I could have gone to any country, this first country. They're doing a short-term mission trip. They could have gone to any country, any week, any day, and they partnered with Chaco. We're partnered with, we just ended up on the same mountain together, which was already in itself a miracle to me. And then I start to talk to one of the guys, and I completely forgot the guy's name. But he's like, oh, where are you at in Sandy Run? What church do you go to? And I was like, oh, I go to Beulah. And he goes, oh, I know where that's at. I go to Labor Day Festival. And I was like, okay. And then he's like, yeah, my daughter used to live in Sandy Run. And I was like, oh, cool, where? And he's like, Baker Mill. And I was like, no way. I was like, well, what house did she live in? And he was like, oh, okay, you go through the gate, you take a left, you go up a hill, and you go around a bend and up a hill, and she's right there to the right. And I was like, that's where I live. And turns out his daughter was Kayla, Nick's wife. And I know, I was like, this is so crazy. The Lord brought this man into my life, literally his daughter was my neighbor. And I think it's because at that time, we're on the mountain. It's a hard life. I mean, it's not easy. And the Lord brought this comfort to me of these are my people. I don't know these people, but these are that's what I'm talking about, this community. This community is so awesome. I immediately felt right at home with them. And also he was the one that brought the mini Jesuses and gave me the mini Jesus, if you know what that means. Okay. Whew. Next. All right, so now we fly to Swaziland, or Eswatini. This is all squad month, which means the whole squad lives together and we do the same ministry together. We stayed, pretty much all of us stayed in this house, all the girls, and then there's another small house with the leaders and the boys. And this is Babe and Mage, which means dad and mom, and we stayed on their homestead. Living in Swazi, we ate in this living room, we worshiped in this living room, we did everything in this little living room. My team, there were 6 girls, we stayed in this bunk bed, which was huge. We just came off a mountain and we've got beds. We were so stoked. Had a full kitchen, well, not full kitchen. We had a stovetop and a toaster oven. So we had a full kitchen. I thought this picture was kind of hilarious because Yume is literally frying eggs while there's chickens pecking at the front door. It's just and then this is kind of what it looks like when you live with 11 people using one sink. And when I say sink, it's not American sinks. It's this deep sink, and it gets crazy. Okay. I'm not going to talk about all these pictures. Like I said, this was the only picture. So we had to hand wash our clothes in Swazi. And a lot of times in the morning, it was pretty chilly. So this particular day, half the squad left the house, so there wasn't a lot of people around using the bathroom. So I felt comfortable to run in there and do my laundry. So my hands wouldn't freeze in the sink outside. Well, I got busted. And Peyton took a picture. But anyways, ministry in Swaziland. Our ministry was about 2 hours away in a neighboring town called Lesotho. And pretty much our main goal here was to just love on the kids. There was a language barrier, so we couldn't always communicate, but we could communicate through Jesus' love. And that was something that a lot of my teammates kind of struggled with at first, was like, what are we doing here? Like, we can't minister to them, like, we can't talk to them, but we were really there just to show them love. And that's what we were called to do, is to love one another. So a lot of times we would just have dance circles. They loved to dance. We tried to teach them the church clap and all this stuff. Another thing at ministry, like every afternoon, like the women would be cooking all day, and then by the afternoon came, the food would be ready, so we would dish out the food for them, and they would cook it in like these giant, like Halloween, like yes, y'all's vocab is spot on. So yeah, it was sad because a lot of times this was the only meal these kids were receiving every day. And they would walk 2 miles after school just to come for this meal. It reminded me a lot of daycare, the after-school care program. The kids would come after school, they hang out with their friends, but it was more like a dire need. Like they were coming to hang out with their friends, but a lot of these kids, their parents are MIA. You have like a 10-year-old raising 3 younger siblings and trying to fend for themselves, and this was their only meal. And then like 2 times a week, they would bring all the kids in this building right here, and we would have a Bible study. These are just some more pictures. This was Nomile. Her and I were best friends. She followed me everywhere. We had a painting day, so we painted their faces, and she asked one of my teammates to write "Caroline, I love" on her face. And Swazi has like an adoption thing where like you can't adopt from outside the country. They want their country to kind of take care of their country, but if there was an adoption, it would have been hard leaving her behind. I think I would have brought her home. And then every Monday, we would go to the nearby city, and we would street evangelize. We would hang out in this park and worship and pray and just talk to the people like the Lord points out to us. And then we would also kind of feed the homeless. If people come up and ask us for food, these 3 boys one day did, and we took them and got cheeseburgers and chicken fingers and stuff. Okay, I had a lot of testimonies from Swazi, but I will talk about one. And before we went to every country, we would have a prayer night, or like a prayer burn, which everyone would sign up for an hour slot during the night, and there would be someone praying every hour that night. And we would do that, and we would pray for the country we're going to. And we'd write on the paper, like, what the Lord highlighted to us, or if we had a vision or anything like that. And I wrote on here, I had a vision of children at the care point getting baptized. And I saw it in a vision, I wrote it, I moved on. Like, I didn't really investigate it, much. So then we fly to Swazi. And a couple of weeks into Swazi, Noah and Tanner had a chance to talk to some of the boys, because Noah and Tanner normally hung out with the older boys and played soccer with them. And Noah was talking to them about their life with Christ, and like baptism got brought up. Well, have you been baptized? Well, no. Do you want to be baptized? Yes. They just haven't really had that opportunity to do that yet. So Noah talked to one of our leaders, and the leader talked to the village pastor. And Noah really wanted to see this through. So they talked to the pastor, and they're like, okay, we can do this, but we need to do like Bible studies leading up to baptism to just like allow them to grasp like what this means. And they did it for like 3 weeks, I think, of just middle school through high school kids, and they ended up, by the end of the week, baptizing 16 high schoolers at the care point. So it was awesome. And we also got to pray over them, and then after they got baptized, the next week we brought them all Bibles. Okay, then we go to South Africa. We partnered with a ministry called Lydia's Mission. This is the first time anyone on the World Race has partnered with Lydia's Mission. We were kind of like an older squad, so they felt comfortable kind of allowing us to be the guinea pigs, it worked out, so it was amazing. We're so thankful we got to go to Lydia's Mission. In South Africa, a note to make, the boys had their own, they have like a guys' country, so the guys get to go to another country than the girls, I guess just to give them a break of all of us women. So the guys were not in South Africa. Tanner and Noah, they went to Lesotho. But these were our hosts in this picture. A little bit of living. We had it nice in South Africa. So South Africa, Lydia's Mission is normally a short-term ministry host. So they keep it nice, like they have Wi-Fi, they have beds for everyone, So we lived pretty nice in South Africa. This is Inika's house. Every morning we go over to her house at 6:30 and have like a little women's study and have coffee with her. So that was really special for us. We got to eat around a table every night, so that was a huge blessing for us. There wasn't much to do in South Africa on the weekends, so the house was stocked with puzzles. So we would just, hang out with each other and do puzzles on the weekends. Ministry in South Africa, we had a couple. So in the morning was, we would go to something called a go-go center. Go-go means grandmother in Afrikaans. So we would go to these go-go centers. We would do a devotion, worship, normally some sort of like craft with them, and then they would be served a hot meal after. So it's kind of like the Care Point in Eswatini, same type of thing. Just a safe place where they can come hear the Word of God and get a meal. And then in the afternoon, these go-go centers would turn into a care point for the kids. So the kids would come over after school, and the same thing. We would have a devotion, worship. We would normally play a game with them, and then they would be served a meal. So every Wednesday, we would go to a trash dump. And the story behind this is Claire, our ministry host, when she came to South Africa for the first time, she was like, where do I take my trash? I guess she wasn't from a place like Sandy Run, and she was told, you got to take it to a trash dump. So she went to this trash dump, and she pulls up, and women start fighting for her trash. And she didn't have a translator that day, but in her head, she's like, what is happening? Like, are they that hungry that they're fighting for my scraps? So the next week she goes and takes her trash, but she brings a translator. And it turns out they weren't really fighting for her trash, they were fighting for her recyclables in the trash. And they collect the recyclables, and a trash dump would normally come and, weigh the recyclable, and then they get paid. Well, the trash or the recyclable truck hasn't came in like 2 to 3 years. And these women are still collecting. So like behind these pictures is just mounds of plastic and tin cans, but they're holding on to that day that this truck comes back and they get paid because they have no other job. So they're basically, relying on faith that this truck's gonna come back. So Claire saw that there was a need at this trash dump, and she asked one of the ladies working there, like, would you be interested in like doing a women's Bible study? And she's like, yeah. So Claire said the first 2 times she went, there was 1 to 2 ladies there, and it just continually grew. And now there's like over 30 women that come every Wednesday. So we were able to go and do a devotion and worship, and on the farm, if there was any ever like leftover produce, we would hand out produce to them and clothes. Another part of ministry in South Africa was youth ministry. If you we're keeping up with YouTube. I do have a YouTube video, and we had like a youth day, and they came to Lydia's mission, and we just had fun. Every Sunday we would go to their church, and I don't know if y'all saw this video. They were so lively and just dancing and worshiping, and it was really fun. So we'd go to church every Sunday in support of the youth. And then another part of our ministry at Lydia's is if we were not at the Go-Go Center in the morning, so we kind of split up our shifts. Like if you wanted to do the Go-Go's that day, you do the Go-Go's, and then you come back and then you do farm work. If you wanted to do the kids, you do farm work in the morning and then go do the kids in the afternoon. We did a lot on the farm. Planted seeds, picked green beans, picked kale, eggs, washed eggs. I've never washed eggs before. That was my first time doing that. And then there was also a sewing room where if you were talented at sewing, you could go and sew. If you were not talented at sewing, you would go and cut out eyeballs, which was my job because I was not talented at sewing, which is a real big help for the women that were making these animals. So the purpose behind the stuffed animals is that's Lydia's main fundraiser. So Claire, the women would make these all year, and then Claire takes them back to the States, and when she holds something like this, she would sell those, and then that would be the proceeds for Lydia's mission. And then this woman right here is an African Pam Mac. She literally fixes everything. I'm like, how do you even know how to do that? And she's just over there doing plumbing. I don't know. So if I was not busy with anything else, I would just go follow her around and see if she needed help. Okay, testimonies. I didn't have a picture for all these, so I just put all the pictures of Barn. Barn is Barney, and in Swazi, I said, man, I really miss a couch, I miss a blanket, like it being cold enough to have a blanket, and I miss a dog to lay on the couch with. And I completely forgot I said that out loud, and then we got to South Africa, and there's this little poodle. He's mixed with something, I don't know what he's mixed with. Anyways, this picture, the second picture, I'm laying on a couch with a blanket with a dog, and it didn't even connect until Bella was like, Caroline, do you see what's happening? The Lord just answered your prayer. You're on a couch with a blanket with a dog, and it was amazing to just witness that it wasn't even a prayer, just the Lord hears our wants and our desires, and yeah, I'm not going to go through all this, but because there was a lot of testimonies in South Africa. Okay. Vietnam. Vietnam, there's only, this was my team. We had a very small team, and then we had one squad leader. So, something to mention, South Africa, in South Africa, our squad leaders only came for half the race. So then, half of the race, they picked 2 people to be raised up squad leaders. So our squad leaders and then our raised up squad leaders, they left and went to a separate house in South Africa, which was in Jeffreys Bay, this picture. That's why we were at Jeffreys Bay. If anybody was wondering why we were at the beach in Africa, that's why. So they left to train the raised up squad leaders. So now Vietnam, Bree and Lexi are now back in America. And then Rebecca, right here, was one of the raised up squad leaders. So she joined my team. This man in the middle, he was our ministry host in Vietnam. Vietnam is a closed country, which means evangelizing is illegal. Illegal. So if you get caught, if you say you're a Christian, if anything like that, you can get arrested or you can just get kicked out of the country. So when we were in Vietnam, we were volunteers. We were not missionaries, which is really hard to say. But to be able to continue to be, we had to say we're volunteers. Anyways, so our cover-up job. We were English school teachers. So we went to this English club, and this is where college students would come after classes, and they come and try to practice more of their English. They actually know English better than I do, but they just need to be able to practice it. So, and then our goal was to form relationships with the students, and either us invite them out to go do stuff, and that's where we could evangelize to them. That's when we could be like, tell them more about Jesus, or then have them ask us to go do stuff. So this was in class, this was in the center, and then this is us outside the center. So we did more with them outside the center than inside the center. We would go out to eat with them, we'd go to the beach with them. This is us in McDonald's. This is us at a water park, an amusement park. You know, that was our ministry. Like, we were English teachers, but our ministry was to take them out and to just hang out with them. Another part of our ministry was every Sunday we would go to an underground church. And the reason that was because if we took these students out and invited them to church, we needed to be at the church we were inviting them to. Because there are like expat churches in Vietnam, but we specifically had to go to this Vietnamese church. And then we also got invited to teach a Sunday school at church one Sunday. This middle picture, somehow a college found out that Americans were volunteering at an English club, and they invited us to come lead their orientation day at college. So it was pretty wild. We found that out like the week of, and we thought we were just going and just hanging out and meeting the students. No, we were leading their orientation. So we had to come up with a bunch of games, and it was really a fun time. But it was just crazy. They just gave free reins to these Americans that don't even teach English to, and this is an English school. This was a British school, I think. But anyways. Okay, testimony from Vietnam is Joe. Joe is in the middle right here. Him and Eric, like we all three really became really close. The first day we were at ministry, all of us girls had to split up into different tables. So like when the students would come in, we'd be separated and they could sit at our tables and we would talk with each other. And they just both ended up at my table that first day, and we were all three very pals, very good friends after that. He reminds me, well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep moving because I'm talking too much. Anyways, Joe hung out with us a lot. Like, out of all the students, he hung out with us the most. And he would ask a lot of questions about Christianity. And the type of questions were hard questions. We would have to, like, kind of all sit with Joe and, like, just discern who, like, the Lord was speaking to answer that question, to make sure we were answering the questions properly. We would just kind of have to popcorn around because he was asking a lot of questions. Leading to that, by week 3 in Vietnam, he came to church. And it was amazing, but it was, you know, thoughts in our heads of like, is he just coming because us American girls are there? You know, those type of doubts. And by the last week we were there, he was like, I'm going to be praying for y'all when y'all go to Thailand. Like, he was starting to use that language. And we were like, wow, this is amazing. And then in Thailand, like, we were all communicating with him, and like, he was saying he's praying for us, and like, we were praying for him because he was graduating soon and he was worried about his internship and all this. And then we get a text in Cambodia, and Joe gave his life to Christ. He got baptized, and he is still going to church. He isn't going to that same church because his prayers were answered. He got the internship that he was so worried about. So Joe was amazing. Thailand. So Thailand, Rebecca, our squad leader, and Josie, they split. So we stayed the same team, but now we added Josie. Living in Thailand was rough for us at first. We lived very well in Vietnam, so I didn't have pictures of Vietnam, but we actually lived in like a apartment hotel. AC, we had indoor plumbing, we had our own beds. It was very comfortable. And then we get to Thailand, and everything in Thailand is pretty much outside. A lot of mosquitoes, very, very hot. So it took some adjusting. But the Lord gave us strength, and we really enjoyed Thailand by the end of it. But all 5 of us stayed in this bunk room. Our dining room, this is our dining room. Our dining room was outside. Every Sunday it turned into church, so we had church at our house. And then this was our living room. And then the kitchen, this is our kitchen. The kids did most of the cooking in Thailand. So a backstory of Thailand, we were told we were going to be at an orphanage. So this is technically an orphanage. However, Juanita, this woman in the pink, she really treats these kids as her own. So it doesn't seem like an orphanage. If anything, it'd be more like a foster home. But she's really raising these kids like they're hers. And it's just a big family. It doesn't seem like an orphanage. Ministry, so the first part of our ministry was to pour into the kids that are at this house. So anytime they were not at school or anytime we had a day off, our goal was to just love on the kids. I'm going to keep going. Second part of ministry, when we first got there, it was long yai season, and she needed somebody to harvest. So we were put straight to work harvesting. The only reference I have is kind of like a muscadine, but a bit harder, and it grows on a tree and not a vine. But you can tell by, Peyton would be upset that I put this picture in here, but it was so hot. That is sweat. That is not water. And we had to wear long sleeves, long pants, because the mosquitoes are so bad in Thailand, but also the ants. The ants love the sugar in the long yai, so their ants were just infesting the plants. But second part of ministry, we became English teachers. So we got to work at an English club where we didn't really teach English. We just taught, or we just communicated with English. Got to Thailand, we were thrown into English teaching. So the first day we showed up, we thought we were just going to kind of be TAs. No, the teachers left the room. So we had no translators. Teachers left. Teachers used it as a planning period. They didn't give us any curriculum, so we had to plan our own classes. It was crazy. It was very difficult. I think this was the most mentally tasking ministry we had, because the kids didn't know English good enough to listen to what we were saying, and we did not know any Khmer. So, of course, there was a language barrier, so kids aren't going to sit still and listen to you if they can't understand you. So it was very difficult. But the Lord gave us strength, and we got through it. I don't know if you can see, but there's a ball in between my armpit right here. We really tried to make it fun so they wouldn't just be sitting there and listening to us all day. Second part of ministry, every Thursday we got to go to a monk school and teach English. And we all really enjoyed the monk school. I really loved my class, especially the boys in my class. They were older, teenage boys. They just liked to have fun, and I liked to have fun, and we joked around a lot with each other. So it was really fun. And they listened because, monks have a lot of rules. They knew they would get in trouble if they didn't listen. Fun fact about monks, they think women are unclean, so they can't touch a woman. And that means you can't hand them something. So if you're going to hand them a marker, you have to put it on the table and then they pick it up. Well, one day we were playing a game, this dice game, and the dice fell on the floor, so I went to go put it on someone's desk. And as I was putting on the desk, he reached out and our hands collided. if they touch a woman, they have to go to through this cleaning process for a couple days. Well, I just looked at him and he looked at me, and we went on our day. So it's because kind of relates to we're out in the country. The schooling, is not that great. So Mom picked up a job at Northside so my brothers and I could go to a better school district and have a higher education. Same with these boys. They are pretty much all from the villages, which has a poor schooling system. So a way for them to get a better education is their parents will send them to monk school. And the monk school will provide transportation for them, food for them, and a better education. And some of them even live at the monk school. So the reason the boy didn't really react was because he's going to the monk school, but he doesn't really truly believe in Buddhism. So anyways, we thought that was pretty interesting. Okay. The other part of our ministry in Thailand, the last 3 weeks we were there, we had the opportunity to start going to a preschool, and this was my favorite ministry. I absolutely loved the preschool. I loved all the little kids. They were all so cute. And it's actually a Christian preschool. So Juanita, our ministry host, the mom that we live with, her best friend owns this Christian preschool. So these little kids, they teach the Bible, and they also teach English. And they teach other stuff too, but these little kids, they knew English better than any other kid that we have taught English to. Kind of remind me of Ben Lippen a little bit. The kids were well taken care of. Even after the naps, one of our jobs was, you can see Josie in the background, one of our jobs was to braid hair. She looks like she's having a terrible time. The teachers knew I wasn't the best braider, so my job was to just read flashcards, like English flashcards or something, or just play with the kids. I'm just going to do one testimony from Thailand. I don't know if everyone knows, but she had a friend in high school, and she ran cross country with, and her friend right here was a, what's that called when the student comes from another country? Exchange student. Wow, y'all need to be on Jeopardy. Okay, she was an exchange student. So she was born and raised in Singapore and then went to Michigan for high school. But anyways, when May found out that we were in Thailand, May reached out to her friend, like, hey, we're going to be in Thailand. Where are you? Oh, well, I'm in Bangkok. Oh, well, shoot, that's the whole flight away from us. But thankfully, we had a long weekend off. May sent in a proposal, got it approved. We were able to fly and go see her friend. Well, it was like a day or two before we left. Her friend's like, I'm so sorry, something with work came up, I can't see you till Sunday. So May and I are like, well, we already have these 2 days off, what do we do? So we got to fly to Phuket, which was further south in Thailand. Got to just witness the Lord's beauty. Phuket is awesome. Then we got to see her friend in Bangkok a couple days later. Testimony from Bangkok. I'm sorry, this is a long story, but I'm getting there. Our last night in Bangkok, May and I are like, well, what do we want to do? What do we want to go do? So Chinatown kept coming up on TripAdvisor of places to go see. So we put in our little Uber app, we're going to go to Chinatown. I don't know what happened with the directions, but the guy took us 30 minutes opposite of where Chinatown's at. So we get there in this random town, and May looks at her map, and she goes, well, the river is a 20-minute walk away. You want to just go there? I was like, sure. So a little frustrated. You spend that money on transportation to somewhere you don't need to be, then you're wasting time walking. We completely missed Chinatown, all these things. And then we get there, and we're in line. They have this free ferry you could get on to take you to where the rail station's at. So we decided to do that because it was free. And we're in line, and this man behind us hears us talking in English, and he's like, well, where are y'all from? So we start talking, and we meet a guy named Grant, but his name's not Grant, his name's Grant, and he will correct you if you say it wrong. But I truly believe the Lord sent us, Yume and I, on this trip just for Grant. Like, just talking with him, how hardened his heart is. He grew up in a Catholic church, and he said he's like disagrees with the church and like all these things. And just Yume and I being able to be there and just witness to him, show him love, and like evangelize to him as best as we could. He was very anti-church, but I truly believe the Lord was there to show him like he is not forgotten, and though he had a hard time growing up in the church, like the Lord still loves him. So, testimony from Thailand. Okay, we're almost done. Last country. Cambodia. We get to Cambodia, and guess what we are? We are English teachers. Yes, my favorite ministry. Truly, I just love it. I'm kidding. It was special. I definitely believe, like, I learned that is not my calling. English teaching is. I've always been so bad at English. It's just not a gifting of mine. But it's okay. Okay, I was going to talk more about that, but I'm not going to talk more about that. So, my team and I partnered with a school called PCL. It was a huge blessing. After leaving Thailand, we were like, oh no, what are we getting ourselves into? We're English teachers again, like how's it going to be? Thankfully, PCL does it right, and we are TAs. So we just assisted the teachers that are already there, and just anything they need for us to do, we were there to just help them. And then the last week, we actually got to join our other team. So our other team was in the villages, and they did manual labor. They also taught a little bit of English, stuff like that. So anyways, we got to join them last week, so this is us all together. So like I said, we were just in class. We each had our own teacher. We just followed them around, whatever they needed us to do. So these are some of our classes. Also on Sundays, the school turns into a church. So we would go, we would help the ladies cook a meal for the kids after church, do whatever they need for us to do. And then this is us just our last day at ministry, having a meal together. So then, like I said, our second ministry, the last week, we got to join our other team. They did English, and they also did Bible lessons for kids. They did village ministry, and then they also did manual labor. So this is us shoveling rocks. And then we also had a movie night. Okay, now, another part of Cambodia was the first week we were in Cambodia, our host told us that we were going to have a holiday coming up. The holiday is kind of like Cambodia's version of Day of the Dead. They worship and celebrate their ancestors, and they believe if you don't cook meals and bring them to your ancestors that week, that you're going to be haunted, like a true Halloween type thing. So schools were canceled, so we didn't have school ministry, and village ministry, they said it'd be best that we weren't in the villages during that week because it's just too spiritually heavy and crazy out there. So we had a week off, so we were like, what do we do? So this is where YMCA comes. YMCA stands for Yume, Maisie, Caroline, and Alexa. If you hadn't been following along on YouTube videos or anything, we hadn't just this idea of like, well, there's not much to do in Cambodia. What if we go to another country? And we start looking at flights, and it's like, okay, well, we go to this country. Well, it's only a couple $20, $30, $40 extra to fly to this country. So that's how we ended up doing 3 countries. So we ended up going to Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia that week. Thank you to everyone who supported that trip. I think I learned more on this week trip of how ministry is life and life is ministry, and how I can do this day in, day out. Like, it doesn't have to be this huge mission trip. Like, you can do this every day, any day. Okay, so a little bit about what we did. In Malaysia, we were calling it evangelizing, so evangelizing and sightseeing. So we were just walking around the cities and just discerning who and what and where the Lord wanted us to be, who he wanted us to talk to. And we get past this park, and you may see this man in the wheelchair, and she's like, can we go speak to him? So we're like, yeah. So we go and talk to this man, and it's actually a homeless park. We didn't know that. So he sits here all day, every day, and you could just see on his face, like, he was so excited to have someone to talk to. Like, he just sits there and just faces people, but no one ever stops and talks to him. So we talked to him for about an hour, and we noticed behind him there's another man, like, going like this. And we asked him, like, what is he doing? He's like, oh, he's asking you for food. And we're like, well, have you eaten today? He's like, no. And we're like, well, what's your favorite food? And he's like, either fried fish or fried chicken. So May and I get up and we go and we try to find food for these homeless people in the park. And we go into this local chicken place, and they just didn't really have what we were looking for. And I turned to May and I was like, I wish there was a KFC or something. Like, we just need a bucket of chicken, And we get out this restaurant and we take a right, and the Lord answers our prayers. There's literally a KFC on the corner. So thank you like I said, to everyone who supported this trip, because part of your finances went to feeding 16 people that day, KFC. So that was a huge testimony from Malaysia. We got to pray over a lot of people. That's one thing that's hard. Like, y'all are only seeing like 1% of this trip with pictures, because it's very hard to capture what the Lord is doing in a picture. You want to be present in the moment. It's hard to be present when you're pulling out your phone and trying to take a picture. Also, sometimes it's kind of disrespectful. Like, you're praying over this person, and like, the only reason sometimes we have pictures is because in our training, we were told it's best to have one person in the group that you're, like, if you're in a group praying, to have one person with their eyes open, just to be aware of your surroundings. So sometimes if that was that one person, they would try to get a picture if they could. But if not, we were trying. So anyways, trying to say, I'm sorry, you're only seeing like a little percentage, but there's so many more testimonies than what you're seeing. But we prayed over people. This girl right here, she's our testimony from Singapore. Long story short, she had been praying. She's already a Christian. She had been praying for the Lord to show her love. Like, she was feeling very unloved, very alone, and she was actually praying this prayer at the same time May and I walk up to her. And so she was able to join our team and just hang out with us for 2 days, and we were able to pour into her and show her love, and that the Lord does love her, and he is answering her prayers. Bali, we had a worship session just in the Lord's creation. Bali is beautiful. Okay. Oh. I was ending with this, but my mom told me I had to add this one more slide. She was the one that told me to cut it down, but she told me to add a slide also. So a huge testimony throughout our whole race was, I know how many people were praying for safety over my squad. And the Lord, I can't look at my mom because she's going to make me cry. The Lord definitely answered that prayer, because almost in every single country there was some sort of disaster that happened the week or two after we left. It was pretty crazy. So I don't have a video or a picture of all of them, but for instance, Guatemala, the week we left, major flooding happened through the streets and cities where the other team was staying. There was a landslide on the mountain we were staying on. I don't think there was one in Swazi, but South Africa, there was major fires in our backyard of where we were staying. The workers had to stay up 24/7 just making sure the fire didn't take the whole property out. Vietnam, there was a hurricane the week after we left. So just all your love, all your prayers were definitely answered. So this first video, the fire, that's our backyard. Literally our backyard. Inika sent us this video after we left. It's crazy. And then Thailand, I forgot Thailand. Thailand had massive flooding. Our coaches came to Thailand. Oh no. Our coaches came to Thailand, and they actually got stranded because of the flooding. And then this building to the left, it says Bella Goose Cafe. That's where our other team was staying during the time in Thailand. So their home flooded after we left. So just the Lord's safety. Okay, I know that was long. Thank you for your attention. Are there any questions? Okay. Okay, the question was for people who couldn't hear, did I find my purpose? I believe everyone's purpose, we're all called to be missionaries. We're all called to be disciples. I believe the Lord reiterated that in me. Like I said during our YMCA trip, I thought a missionary was like someone who that was their job title. Like they went overseas, or like they were pastors, or that in my head that was a missionary. But that YMCA trip really showed me like I said, life is ministry and ministry is life. We could be walking down in Walmart and we could share the gospel. We could be pumping our truck our car, and be beside somebody, and we can tell them about Jesus. So yeah, if that answers your question. Okay.
My comment, Caroline, was that it was amazing to me that you're true, and you did the ATL, ask the Lord, as you go somewhere, and had no clue where you were going to stay, eat, but you knew God would provide, and you had to pray and ask for Him to.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I completely forgot to even talk about our ATL trips. We had a couple of times during our race. It's called ATL, so Ask the Lord. It's basically what it sounds like. It's taking us out of the picture. So we will go somewhere, and we will specifically just ask the Lord, like, who do you want us to talk to? Where do you want us to stay? We just didn't have things lined up, and we just solely relied on the Lord and where He wanted us to be. And in a foreign country, that is correct.
What was the biggest cultural shock to you?
Coming back to America. Oh, sorry. The question was, what was the biggest cultural shock? Coming back to America, yeah. A little bit in Thailand, like I said, just going from in Vietnam and then going to Thailand, it was a little bit of a shock, but mainly coming home. Not everyone is friendly. In overseas, people will look at you when you're walking down the street. They will say, hey, they will wave, they want to talk to you. Coming home, it's like, don't look at me, don't get close to me, don't even dare touch me. I'm trying to get home after work, get out my way. And then just going into a store and seeing how much access we have. And now I can go into Walmart and go down the shampoo aisle, and I'm just like, where do I even start? So yeah, America, coming back home was a culture shock for me.
If you had not had the opportunities that you had,
Through the Lord, yes. I just saw that through my squad mates. My squad mates did not have this.
But was it Christ-bound, or was it what you wanted to do as far as find out about their country and so on? Was it more Christ? Was it about Christ most of the time?
Are you asking about our ministry? Was our ministry Christ-bound?
I don't mean to put you on the spot, darling.
Well, you got me on the spot. What are you asking? What's your question?
What you learned over there from these people, was it more about Christ, or was it about their country?
About Christ.
It's more about Christ. Thank you, Lord.
Yes.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Grandma. Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat your question again?
You were able to visit so many different cultures, and I'm sure there were some surprises for you. Was there anything that surprised you about their reaction to America? Was there anything that was in common that they would say about being an American?
I think it's widely known, especially like since we're all connected, how wealthy America is. Locals would see a white person, a gringo, and they would just see money. They would think we're all rich. They think we're getting paid to do this, and that we have those resources, which we do. America has so many resources. So I think that was a bit like a little misconstrued. What's the word? Yeah. But which we are compared our even our low class is rich in other countries. So, but good question. Anybody else? I don't regret going. Would I do it again? Like, you're saying, like, if I went back to last year, would I do this year again, or would I do another? Would I go back with this organization? That's a hard question. Every church, every organization, everyone has different opinions about how things could go. I think yes. I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons.
You could go back to one place and stay for a period of time before you go.
That's hard. My immediate answer was Vietnam. I absolutely love Vietnam. It was the cheapest country we were in. You could get a whole meal for $1. You could take an Uber for like 25 cents, all this stuff. The place we stayed, there was 5 of us in this apartment hotel. We had 3 rooms, or 3 bedrooms, 2 separate rooms. It was like $150 a month for 5 of us to live there. Love Vietnam. Also, Guatemala is also amazing. Guatemala is so beautiful. The people are beautiful. So yeah, that's a hard question. Probably Vietnam, though.
Did you lead a group on your own?
On my own, probably not. I might need some backup. Anybody else? Yeah, so the question was Vietnam the only country you had to be careful in? Yes. Vietnam was our only closed country. So. Oh, that's a great point. You are correct, Miss Robin. Indonesia was also a closed country. I completely forgot about that. We weren't acting like it was closed. Yes. So yeah, Vietnam and Indonesia were illegal. The biggest waves, South Africa. They were way too big for me. I am too much of a beginner. Vietnam was the calmest. I like Vietnam. I didn't feel like I was going to die going in the ocean. That's a great question. So this is actually something I fasted about in Cambodia, because that was a hot topic at the end of our race of like, okay, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I was just like Googling jobs and stuff, and I took a week off to fast and like really ask the Lord what he had for me. And it's a long story short, but I heard through Esther, I was reading Esther, and Esther was telling Mordecai, like, you could be queen for just a time as this. And it really hit me of like, I could be on this race for Cambodia, and I'm so focused on the future that I'm not present. So through that fast, I stopped my search, and I really heard the Lord tell me, like, he has these desires in my heart for a reason. Like, he doesn't give each and every one of us different desires, like, for nothing. And something I've had a desire to do since sophomore year in college is to do van life. And up until this race, I always wanted to do van life for my own personal gain. Like, I wanted to travel. I wanted to see our country. I wanted to hike. And it was on the race where I felt led to do trail ministry. And I feel like that is a huge need in America. There's so many people my age, like, not even our age. There's like retirees, you know, doing van life and stuff and going hiking and trying to find their purpose through hiking and van life and all this. All that to say is I do believe the Lord is calling me to van life and van life ministry, and I've been doing research on that, and there's not a ministry out there that's doing that, that's doing van life ministry or trail ministry. So I believe that's in my future. When that will be, only the Lord knows. But great question. Anybody else? Okay.
Which country did you find to be more or most receptive to the gospel? And which one was the least?
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, dear.
It's okay.
You're my wonderful granddaughter, and I'm so thankful for you.
Thank you, Grandma. I'm thankful for you.
If none of you been praying for her, you know her name now. You know what she's been doing. You know the God of love. I want you to start praying for her.
Amen. Grandma, you want the mic? We can get you up here. Okay, so the question was, what was the country that was least receptive, my goodness, I need to go back to middle school, receptive to the gospel, and which one was most? Okay. That's hard. It also depended on the language barrier, too, I feel like. I was actually surprised by how receptive they all were, even the closed country. You know, we came across a couple hard hearts, but that's every country, so.
Which country had the most baptisms? Wasn't it the Philippines or South Africa?
Swaziland with the 16 high schoolers. We also had a lot in Cambodia. I don't know the exact number. But. Anybody else? Okay. Sure? I think this is my last slide. Okay. Yes. Thank you for all your love and support. And then until next time. There's refreshments and appetizers in the building to your left. If you go out and go straight to the left, you're more than welcome to join us for fellowship.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.